Westies used to borrow their money from Ruby Stein, one of the biggest
loan sharks in the country.
Loan sharks, maybe in the whole country, right? And he was a Jew, but he was involved with the Genovese family. And when they killed him. They all went one day. Jimmy Coonan, the boss of the Westies, told his crew, everybody borrow as much money as you can borrow from Ruby, because we're going to whack them out after. They all did. They all went. Billy had like a couple $100,000.
Yeah.
And they all had this money, and then a couple of weeks later, they whacked them out. They killed him.
Danny Grillo, who was a real good friend of mine, was involved in that killing with the Westies. So
yeah, he was in there. That's right. He was at that.
Yeah,
bar.
he was at the bar.
Right?
He actually pulled a trigger on him.
Yeah, well, so did Billy.
Yeah.
They all had to fire a round into him, even though he was dead.
Right.
They passed the gun around. And they all had to shoot him. And then they got rid of the body, and they thought they had killed him, but they didn't know how to cut the bodies up like the DeMeo crew did. And when they cut it up, they threw it in. Their favorite place for getting rid of bodies was up in
Randall's Island.
Randall's Island, up there in the Bronx. Well, about a week later, his torso floats up because they didn't puncture the lungs and stuff. The torso is found. So they know now, they cut him up, but the torso came. So now the mob knew he was killed. I mean, they didn't know for sure what happened. Did he take off, or they didn't know, but now they knew, and they knew it's got to be the Westies. And so they took these guys, the Westies, and Paul Castellano. So the Gambino, the Genovese family complained to Paul Castellano because he's the boss of bosses, and they said, got to do something about the Westies. So they called Jimmy Coonan and told him, we have to have a sit down, and I want you and Mickey Featherstone, the number 1 and number 2 Westies, to come over to Brooklyn to Tommaso's restaurant and have a sit down with Paul Castellano and the Capos in the Gambino family. So now the Westies, when they hear about this sit down, Billy Beattie is one. They're all over in Manhattan on the west side, and they know they're going to the sit down with the. They didn't know if they're going to be killed, they're going to walk out of there, or they were just going to get killed.
Right.
So they had all the Westies. Remember, there were only about 12 Westies that intimidated like 3,000 others.
Hold on, just go on.
So the Westies all got together that evening, that afternoon before Mickey and Jimmy were going over for the meeting sit down, and Coonan told them, bring all your guns, bring all your weapons. I want everything you have. I want them. And the meeting was at Mickey's apartment. And the difference between the mob and the Westies, the Irish and the Italians, is the wives are involved to here with the Westies. They are crooks. They're involved in everything. Jimmy Coonan's wife was calling hits when he was in prison. She's telling other Westies, this guy's got to get clipped, that guy. I mean, that's how they were.
Right.
And so they were up
and the Italians keep their wives and families out of it.
No, they were involved. They were all involved. All the wives are involved.
In the Westies.
In the Westies,
yeah.
And so they brought all their stuff up to Mickey's apartment. Sissy was there, Mickey's wife. Some of the other wives were there. And okay, now Coonan says, now here's what you're going to do. You guys keep all this stuff here, all the weapons. They had hand grenades and stuff like that. And
they had to wait for that
Mickey and Jimmy Coonan were going over. They had to be there like at 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
And at Tommaso's restaurant. And if we don't make a call, if you don't get, if the rest of the Westies know, who are waiting up in the apartment. If you don't get a call from us by 10 o'clock, then I want you guys to jump in your cars, go over to 86th Street, Brooklyn, right at Tommaso's, right around Tommaso's, and you know,
Bay 8th Street.
but it was before, was your club there then, the
Yeah, it was
the
there.
Veterans and Friends?
Yeah.
Okay, and the social club was right down the street, and you know, and these
2
guys.
doors there.
So it's wise guy heaven right there, you know. And their mission was to kill every wise guy you see. Anybody that even looks like a wise guy, machine gun, grenade, anything. They were going to start a war right on the sidewalk out front. This was a good plan. It had a couple of flaws. Number one, the Westies all got stoned up in the apartment. They're passing around all the joints and smoking, you know, drinking, the whole thing. They were, Billy says that they couldn't have done anything. They were so out of it that they couldn't have done anything by 10 o'clock. But number two, Mickey and Jimmy forget to make the call at 10 o'clock. So they're supposed to get a phone call reassuring them that everything is okay. There's no phone call, so they don't know what's going to happen. Well, it just turned out nothing happened. They didn't get killed either, Mickey and Jimmy.
Actually, it was the marriage.
He ended up hooking up with Mickey, being friends with Mickey.
But we were both Green Berets.
Right, right. So you guys hit it right off. And
And
but it was
I was the only guy at that meeting that wasn't made.
that is right. That's right. It was just capos.
Yeah. The same thing when they made Paul Castellano. I was there when they made the boss.
Yeah.
You know, there's not supposed to be any unmade guys there.
That's right.
You know.
That's right.